Hey guys, what's up? This is False Bulls 123, and this is day 43 of our quarantine challenge. For some reason, I wanted to call it our False Bulls challenge, and I don't think that's how it works. Maybe, when I have a gajillion subscribers, we can do a False Bulls challenge, but I don't even know what that means. Now, guys, do you have a sweet tooth? Because I sure do. And that's why we are doing another tag. One that I actually made myself, so roast me in the comments because I'm a trash lord who can't do anything right. And that's called the dessert tag. And maybe I'll learn how to put, text up here or something. I don't know. I just like going imagination memes because it's a fun thing to do. Now, enough of that rubbish. And actually, let's get on to some of the fun questions that I came up with about desserts. Now, quick disclaimer, I do realize that these questions are taken from a perspective that is very ethnocentric, that is very much generalized in what is the American Western desserts cuisine. So obviously there are a lot of desserts that I will not mention that you might have if you don't live in America or Canada or places like that. So if you do want to do this tag, and for instance, you really don't eat pie, because pie, there are obviously a lot of cultures that have pies, but sweet fruit pies, and just sweet pies in general, are very specifically tend to be American and Canadian, while other countries who do have pies are usually more savory, such as meat pies. Not all of them, but yes. Usually if it's a sweet pie, it's more of an American dessert than it is a other country's dessert. Now, I'm going to shut up about that, but if I do ask a question that you just don't have that dessert, or it's not a very common dessert in your country to eat, or talk about, maybe that can just be sort of a freebie question, and you can just name a favorite dessert of yours. How does that work? Yeah. Anyway. First question, cake or pie? The quintessential question about desserts. And it's pie for me. I am a pie-loving bitch. I love the stuff. I like making it. I like eating it. I like cake. But for me, cake is kind of a party thing. Pie is every day. I love pie. If there was a pie on my table, I would be happy because I would be eating that pie for breakfast. I believe that pie for breakfast is an American right and tradition. And if the Canadians want to eat it too, that's cool because they also have a really lovely pie tradition that utilizes their own stuff and blah, blah, blah. Next up question, what is your favorite pie? And if you don't have a favorite pie, that's okay. Just say that, or like I said before, freebie question if you just don't eat pie. If pie is a common dessert in your cuisine. So my favorite is probably pecan. I do love pecan pie. One of the first pies I've made. It's one of the best pies I make. And yeah, I like eating it, and I like making it for other people as well. Mostly just because people take a bite of it and their eyes roll back in their head and they're just like, oh my goodness, Ryan, if you were a chick, I would marry you. And I'm just like, that's right, bitch. I am wifey material. It's just a good pie in all senses of the word. Now, question number 3. Reverse it a little bit this time. What's your favorite cake? Now, I love a lot of different types of cake. And I mentioned this a little bit before, in my birthday tag, which I don't believe I've uploaded just yet, but I'm working on it, so hold your fucking horses. And that is German chocolate cake. I love it. I also love carrot cake, so those are my 2 favorites when it comes to cake. But you put any type of cake in front of me, and I'm going to not say no. You put a pound cake in front of me, I'm a hubba, yes, get that. You put a chiffon cake in front of me, I'm just like, alright. You put thinking of a third type of cake that exists out there. Just a regular, vanilla chocolate butter cake, ooh, baby. I don't care, but German chocolate carrot cake, up high, those are my 2 faves. So, question number 4, and most of these are just favorite, but we're going to get into some more funner questions as we go along. What is the newest or weirdest flavor of ice cream you have tried? Because, yeah, like, some people, they don't eat that many new flavors of ice cream. They stick to the vanilla, and it's like, it's okay if you're vanilla, but it's also nice to explore your horizons, people. Like, like, don't feel afraid to, like, eat something like that, So, the newest flavor of ice cream I have eaten recently would be spumoni, which is really, really good, actually. You're like, what's spumoni, Ryan? That sounds like it has something weird in it, like spinach. Interesting fact, a lot of ice creams actually do use vegetables in the production for colorization, like, I think tomatoes was one of the things that people use or something. But don't quote me on that, but it's actually really interesting because there's a lot of ingredients in ice cream that you wouldn't expect to be in there because you expect them to be savory. Now, I'm going to tell you what spumoni is and stop giving you false fools 1, 2, 3 culinary corner. Spumoni is, if I remember correctly, a pistachio, pink rum, and chocolate ice cream. So it's kind of like Neapolitan, but it has pistachio instead of vanilla. And it also includes, I believe, whole chunks of pistachios, some amount of fruit, I don't remember what type, and essentially it is also with the inclusion of rum throughout it. So it's kind of like eating butter rum and pistachio and strawberry ice cream like all together. And so you get that sort of... It's really hard to describe the taste of alcohol if you haven't ever drank it. You basically get this sort of... It's rum, so it is very dark. It has a lot of caramel notes to it, but you also get this almost antiseptic taste of the ethanol, which is really hard to describe if you haven't drank before. But on top of that, and on top of, that sort of just gray ribbon, I'm trying to, use some sort of visual metaphor of, the rum. You get all of these fruit flavors and all of this, other taste to it. And so it's really complex, but it's a really fun flavor. And it's not something I would probably ever serve with, a pie or with, another dessert, just because it's a very strong flavor, and it's a very complex flavor, and I don't want that overpowering, something. But if you were going to use spumoni, for instance, maybe as, a nice sundae, I think that would be, a really great way to serve it. So, I think that's probably, that was the newest flavor I've eaten, or, when I say newest, I don't mean the last flavor I've eaten, I meant the new, a flavor you've never eaten before that you've recently ate. So, and that's both the newest and weirdest one I've had, just because it's, old school and complex, but it's really interesting at the same time. Okay. Number 5. What is the strangest dessert you have ever eaten? Now, this could be anything from, chocolate-covered ants, which I think is, objectively, a bit strange. And not, there's, cultures out there that don't eat insects, just that covering them in chocolate is the weird part. I'm trying to think, because, I'm a cook. I'm very obsessed with, international cuisines and stuff, so there's not, a lot of dishes I find strange. But, for instance, it could be something like chocolate-covered ants, or it could be something that you would be very uncommon where you're from. So, if you went to, Japan on a trip, and you had, taiyaki, which is essentially a, fried cake that's shaped like a fish. That's pretty strange to, us, back in the States. Or if, you went to England and you had a, spotted dick, or you had, something like that. If there's, a dish that, you had never seen before, it was very new to you, that's really awesome. And if you just think, and it doesn't matter, if you think, oh, the dessert is, super common, wherever you're from, is what's, interesting or strange or weird to you. And I'm not using weird to be pejorative. I'm simply using weird as outside of one's experience, which I definitely can feel is, obviously that is a question of ethnocentrism and, all this other bullshit. But it's just name a weird dessert you have. If it's strange to you, don't worry. You're growing, and you're, experiencing more things. And it's always going to seem bizarre if it's outside of a culture that you're not from. There's plenty of people that think things eggs or shredded cheese is, weird in the States, and they don't understand, why we put ketchup on everything, and all these other stuff. And at the same time, it's just a matter of exposure. So enough of the disclaimers. My weirdest dessert I ever had was a beet flavored cake. And it was actually multiple different utilizations of beet, and it was made for a cooking project that was done in by one of the bakers that I was I was a friend with. And so she brought over this piece of cake that she had made, and it was very abstractly made. It had a lot of different utilizations of beet to it, but it was completely sweet. And I loved it conceptually. I really love the idea that the realm of sweet and savory are very much more muddled. That there is definitely a gray zone between what you can consider a savory or sweet ingredient. Take, for instance, things such as Moroccan bisiles, which are chicken pot pies, but they have cinnamon sugar done as a garnish for it. Or chiles en nogada, which uses a sweet cream sauce and pomegranate seeds as the garnish. So those are both very savory dishes, yet they have sweet elements to them that make it interesting. In the same vein, beet is very much what I consider a savory vegetable. You have glazed beets, which I do not love. I'm not a big fan of beets in general. But essentially, most utilizations of beets are very savory. You have borscht, you have a few other things. So I would never think about having it in a cake. Similar to how you would consider a carrot to be a generally savory vegetable, but you have carrot cake, right? Taste-wise, it was okay. I thought it was it was sweet, it tasted like a dessert, but it also tasted like beets, and it was just not my most favorite note for it. I love the concept of it, and I do like avant-garde cooking, but it just really wasn't probably my favorite thing, and I'm definitely biased because I don't really care for beets in the first place. So I think, if you had a kid out there who, doesn't like beets, and you're just, eat your beets, they would get down on that. Yeah, it was pretty interesting. Okay, question number 6. What is your favorite dessert? So, I know this answer immediately. I even have a picture of it on the wall right there, so you kind of guess what it was, and that is, of course, the Italian dessert tiramisu. What's tiramisu, Ryan? I don't know Italian because I'm not American. As we all know, Americans are obsessed with Italian cuisine. Tiramisu is a lovely, I would define it as a trifle, which is a level of different things, essentially a layered dessert that has whipped cream in it. But it's, made Italian-wise. So it starts off with a base of ladyfingers, which is a type of cookie. Think Milanos, they're kind of like that. And then it's interspersed with a bunch of different ingredients, including espresso and mascarpone, which is a type of very sweet cream cheese, essentially. So imagine if ricotta is Italian cottage cheese. Imagine mascarpone as Italian cream cheese. It's very sweet. It's almost like a whipped or chantilly cream, but it's a cheese, which kind of blows your mind when, you think about it. And it also, includes, I believe, some chocolate and some stuff like that. So it's very creamy. It has that bite of espresso to it, and it also has this very nice crispness with the ladyfingers. And you can make it a gajillion different ways. That picture up there, which you can barely see, it is actually done in coupe glasses, which I do love the idea of. I love using stemware as a plating device because it can be very fun sometimes. And you don't have to buy extra dishes for plating, which is nice. So the best version of tiramisu I ever had, it was actually done as a bombe-tort. Hopefully I pronounced that correctly. I am not French. I was going to OCCI, and it was during the spring time, and that was when the patisserie was in operation. For you that have never been to Coos Bay or went to OCCI, every year they had a sort of bake shop that the bakers did, where they sold during the a la carte quarter, and that was called a patisserie. And basically they would just make a bunch of stuff for sale, and you could buy it. And so they had all the great ones, ham and cheese croissants, which I love. And they had, they had je petit fours. They had those, little French things with the jelly in them. They had like, all sorts of stuff. And they had savory options as well. Because remember, this patisserie, this boulangerie, but they did both sides. It wasn't just pastry. And so they also one time sold just this fantastic tiramisu. And it was done as a bombe. Which, if you don't know, is essentially just a bowl-shaped, like, dessert. It's like, a little semicircle, and it's called that because of the shape and I remember what bombe translates to in French. Also, that's spelled B-O-M-B-E, so, because it's French, and they, don't like to pronounce the letters. And it was really lovely done. It had, this cute little shell on it, while the mascarpone, the espresso, and, all the other, ingredients were inside. And I actually believe it had a little bit of gold leaf on it, if I remember correctly. Anyway, I take a bite of it, and I'm, when I'm, stepped aside, because I'm just bitches can't wait, and bitches is me. And, I had a little bit of a foodgasm with it. I netted a little bit in my mouth, as the saying go, because it was just so fucking good. 3 times I had something that was, so fucking good I almost cried. And that was Cheshire sauce, first quarter, trout almondine, also first quarter, and that motherfucking tiramisu, third quarter. I had to think about, what quarter it was. I also, I had a fuck ton of great, food that I put in my mouth, but, oh my goodness, that tiramisu, I almost wept, it was so good. And I also just love tiramisu, and it's if you put, a fat, lasagna pan in front of me, and it was filled to the brim with, tiramisu, honey, you would have to be sending me to the hospital, because I would need my stomach pumped, because I would have eaten the entire, fucking pan. I love this shit. It's just, I love it, and it's great. Next up, what is your least favorite dessert? Now, everyone has a dessert that they don't love. And that is perfectly fine. I mean, I'm really trying to... I have a very specific one listed here, but I'm also trying to think of desserts that, I'm just never the biggest fan of. I think desserts is a lot easier to be pretty favorable of them because they're sweet, and people like sweet things. I think sweet is, most people like that, unless you have, I guess, really bad teeth, and then you like the sugar causes sensitivity. But I don't feel like that is because you just like the taste, that's because you just like the pain. And that's 2 separate, senses, or stimulations, or whatever the word is. So, I feel like I am cheating a little bit, with this question. Just because I don't believe it's technically considered a dessert, I believe it's considered a sweet bread. But it's sweet, and I'm counting that as a dessert because I feel like, when you get down to it, you can't perfectly have these categorizations of food where everything is 100% accurate. And so my least favorite dessert is what's called a concha. And I do apologize if I mispronounced that incorrectly. Concha means shell in Spanish, and it's essentially a type of sweetbread that is served in Mexican bakeries, panaderias, I believe that's how it's pronounced. And so I actually found out, and so I would always buy one because they're really pretty looking, they're shell shaped, and there's these little round, rolls, and they look so good. But I take a bite of them, and the sugar on top is it's nice, but it's also very little for how much bread there is. And it's very dry. And so, I'll be halfway through one of them, and I'll just be disappointed, I guess. Now, years later, after, I've eaten conchas 4 or 5 or 6 times at this point, somebody explains to me that the proper way to eat a concha is with coffee. It's essentially, it's very similar to biscotti, which is also, something that's served with a drink. And that's why it's so dry, is because it's meant to be served, with that. And somebody said that to me, and I'm thinking, oh my goodness, that makes perfect sense. I still haven't had it with coffee, and I feel like a piece of shit. But the next time, I buy conchas, I think it would be really nice, maybe, this is, of course, also in a future universe where I own an espresso machine, but I think, it's a slice of concha, a nice cup of espresso. That sounds like a lovely meal. And so it's my least favorite, but also at the same time, I don't believe I've gotten the most utilization out of the bread itself. So it's definitely something I want to give more of a chance to, because I want to learn to love conchas. Question number 8. What is a dessert? Excuse me. I am very dry in throat right now. What is a dessert you would recommend to people? Now, this could be any dessert. It could be your favorite dessert. It could just be something your family's made for years that you don't personally love, but you want to show other people because it's cool. My favorite dessert that I would absolutely recommend to people is called kulfi, which I get that I'm a culinarian, I'm a cook. I literally have spent my entire life trying to learn about all of these different foods and stuff, and I think it's super awesome. But it's okay if you pick things which are a lot more centralized to where you live from. Me personally, I love the concept of kulfi. And what is kulfi, Ryan? You keep saying these words that sound foreign, and you aren't explaining them. Well, let me tell you. Kulfi is essentially Indian ice cream, but it's actually made from a different technique than what we consider in our traditional Western sense. So, if I remember correctly, kulfi specifically is mango, but there are a few other flavors that they make traditionally. So kulfi is essentially made with, I believe, a form of cream. I remember using sweetened condensed milk when I made it, though I imagine they would have used a different type of ingredient before the advent of that. And essentially it's done through a process of freezing the fruit puree and the cream, and that makes a very specific, very creamy texture. So the cream itself is a different consistency than our traditional churned ice cream, but it has this just immense flavor. It has a lot of other really fantastic qualities to it. So I love making kulfi. I love eating kulfi, and it's just one of probably my favorite dishes that I've tried from another culture that I just really enjoy. I have tried to make kulfi several times in the past. Usually I just don't have the right equipment for it, and so it comes out a little bit The last time I made it, I used the wrong form of pan, so it didn't completely condense the right way. So the top half of it was essentially similar to a granata, which is Italian shaved ice, essentially, while the bottom half had actually frozen properly into kulfi. And so it was kind of interesting because you got this sort of mango flavored ice, and you're like, this is good! And then you just click through the bottom, and underneath is just this almost pudding consistency, just fantastic ice cream, and you're like, oh woo, what's this? But yeah, I love kulfi, and it's definitely something that I would recommend people try. So moving on, because I will literally rave about this for 20 minutes, is question number 9. What is your favorite flavor of donut? You would not believe how hard it is for people to answer this question. You say, hey, what's your favorite flavor of donut? And they're like, wow. Suddenly, I don't think I've ever eaten a donut. Donuts are not a critical and vital part of the American breakfast cuisine, and therefore I am unknowledgeable about them. It's not like hundreds of people every single day in America eat donuts, because I am not one of these people, and therefore I'm unable to tell the difference between a cruller and a twist. I'm also not able to tell the difference between a cruller and a twist, but I know what my favorite donut is, people. Answer the damn questions when somebody asks you them, honestly. Worst part about being a cashier is that nobody was good at answering questions, and it's do you not have small talk where you come from? The rock that you live under? Because obviously they don't. I feel like this channel is just evolving into me shitting on, my customers at Walmart. I liked working as a cashier. I was just very infuriated because so many people were just terrible at talking. And it's I'm a conversationalist, and it's sad how many people live boring, dreadful lives where they never think about things or have opinions. And that's just my opinion on life. Take it or leave it. Anyway, Ryan, you're getting off the fucking point. What's your favorite donut? That is a glazed old-fashioned. Why do I love glazed old-fashioned donuts? Many reasons. First, they're really basic. They're not overly fancy. They're not super sugary that it rots your teeth out, and they're not bland. They're this perfect medium where it's just that's a good donut. Second, they're cool looking. They got this sort of cracked, crispy edge sides to them that adds a little texture, that adds a little surface, area to it. And it's just like, it allows for like all the taste you get in there. And it's cool looking. And 3, it's a cake donut. So it's like, you got some meat to it. And it's just, I love them. They're great. All of the donuts can basically fuck themselves. Not really, but there's a lot of like lousy donuts out there. And I'm kind of looking at you like, probably maple bars. Not the good maple bars that have like, the bacon on them, but just like the maple bars that have like that little bit of like maple extract and some sickly sweet icing. And they're just kind of bland. And you're like, okay, this is good, but why didn't I just get a chocolate? Because you wanted chocolate. Anyway. Oh, and powdered donuts can go fuck themselves, because I don't want to be covered in mysterious white powder like it's the 2000s, or like I just snorted crack like in the 80s. Anyway, moving on. What is your favorite cookie? Now, I feel this one is a lot better for an international audience, since cookies are a large tradition of many cultures. Namely European cultures, but I mean, this is an English-speaking channel, so I don't really know what my demographics are. But what's your favorite cookie, Ryan? There's a lot of them. Oh my goodness, there's so many types of cookies. Like, I'm glad I have a favorite cookie, because if I had to suddenly decide what my favorite cookie is, I would be terrified. Like, there are more cookies in the world than they deserve to be. And they're all good, but I'm just like, people, how many ways can you combine butter and sugar into flat discs? Because that is too many ways. My favorite flavor of cookies is snickerdoodles, because I'm basic. What's a snickerdoodle, Ryan? I don't live in America, and therefore are not familiar with American desserts. A snickerdoodle is, best way to describe it, is essentially a sugar cookie that's covered in cinnamon sugar. And you're like, that does sound basic. For me, the snickerdoodles taste very similar to baked custard, in my opinion. They just have that sort of almost eggy taste to them. That it's like, omelet eggy, but it's like custard eggy, if that makes sense. And so, I love them, even though I really don't like many other things that give me that egg taste. Because they're fun, they're chewy, and they just have this great smell to them. So, I don't chill most of the cookies I make just because I find it unnecessary. But I always chill snickerdoodles because you have to roll them. And because, it's fun. I don't know why it's fun to, chill snickerdoodles instead of other cookies, but it's fun for me. So, I love snickerdoodles. If you've never had a snickerdoodle, you should. They have a fun name, they have a fun look, they have a fun taste. And as cookies go, they're very distinctly American, as far as my understanding. I feel the most American cookie, just getting off topic here for a second, would obviously be the Toll House chocolate chip cookie, for obvious reasons. Thank you, Ruth Waker. Or was it Wakefield? I always mix up the two. So, on to our last question. And this one, it was a little bit of that sneaky, and it's actually a tri-parter. And that is, name 3 desserts that remind you of childhood. This can be anything. Basically, you just want to think back to, when you was a little tyke, and, your mama gave you, a popsicle or something. For some reason, I forgot that, popsicles even existed in this world, so let's move on from that. But yeah, just 1 or 3 things that, remind you of your childhood. And this could be, any type of dessert. It could be, commercial. It could be, really traditional family thing. It could be a cultural food item that you would only really see, during, special holidays that your family celebrates. Anything like that. I just want to hear, about 3 different, desserts that you ate as a kid. I think this is a great question just because it's a little bit like food writing, and I love food writing, so that's why I do these things. So, first up for me, my first dessert is pumpkin pie with whipped cream. Now, pumpkin pie is a very traditional pie to have during Thanksgiving, and so my grandma would be baking good 20, 30 of them for the family during this season. But she always made sure that she kept 1 or 2 pies prepared for us at home. And so the day after Thanksgiving, it was always a tradition, and usually after Christmas, we still had pie by then. It was always a tradition to cut myself a nice, slice of pie and put a fat dollop of like Cool Whip on like, top. And that's my favorite way to have pumpkin pie. The custard part of the pumpkin is lovely. It's soft. It has a great flavor to it. And then the whipped cream just really adds so much to the dish. It's that little level of creaminess. It's sort of more subtle flavorings helps really just, I guess, balance. Like the fat and like the creaminess of it really helps balance the more intense flavor of the pumpkin spice. And so it just really works together in just a great harmony for the dish. And I love, like, pumpkin pie because it reminds me of, like, all of these holidays where, like, we had Thanksgiving and we had Christmas and, like, just all of it makes me like family and the holidays and, like, all of these other, like, really warm memories. And so that's probably, like, one of my favorite desserts, like, memory-wise. Next up, Neapolitan ice cream. I feel like I could actually probably use any type of ice cream here, but I think Neapolitan was like one of the ones that we definitely loved as a kid. So if you guys don't know what Neapolitan is, because I imagine most people do, but I hate being like, a dick and just assuming things. Neapolitan ice cream is a type of ice cream that has 3 different flavors in like, one tub. It's actually named after, I believe, a district in New York, or from a people from New York. Essentially, it's named after some sort of group of Italian immigrants who started making the flavor. Anyway, so it's called Neapolitan, and it has nothing to do with, oh shoot, what is his name? Like, the French guy who, like, took over most of Europe. I can't remember his name anymore. It's not about him, though, which is what I always assumed as a kid. And so basically it's chocolate, vanilla, and strawberry ice cream, like little, like, trifecta, looks like a flag or something, who knows. And so my parents were like, buy that. Like, when we were a kid, we'd get, like, one of those big gallon, like, plastic tubs of it. And at night, like, for dessert sometimes. And I remember it would always be, like, hours after dinner. Like, it would always be, like, later in the night, just, like, sort of like a little snack. We would, like, make ourselves big scooping bowls of ice cream. And we would fill it with, like, chocolate sauce and whipped cream. And we would just sit there and we'd have, like, this lovely bowl of ice cream. I think that's, like, a way to have a dessert that you don't always get as much. And I really love the idea of ice cream in a bowl where you have, like, the toppings on it. I guess that's called a sundae, though my concepts of sundaes are a bit different. I always think about it, like, as more a constructed dish. But let's get off that. And yeah, we just had, like, I guess, like, these sundaes, like, as dessert. And they were always just really lovely. And it's just, I don't know, like, it's such, like, a happy memory, though. Just, like, me, like, sitting, like, in the kitchen at, like, 10 o'clock at night, eating a huge bowl of ice cream, and so were my parents. And we weren't really talking, we were just, I don't know, like, existing in the moment. And that's always, like, a lovely place to be. Lastly, this is one that is another family favorite of mine. This is actually something that my aunt makes, which I didn't realize, like, I missed until recently, but it is probably one of my favorite desserts that just, it's something like, just this, like, little tidbit thing that people do, and I like it. Because everyone has those things. So my aunt always says, like, usually, she buys frosting now, but she used to make her, own handmade buttercream, which I don't put eggs in my buttercream, but I usually just put, like, a tad of milk just in it. Everyone has, like, their own ways of doing buttercream, so don't worry about it. It's like, if you aren't, like, a professional baker, no one gives a shit how you make your buttercream. And that's just the long and short of it. Anyway. But basically, she would, like, she would, like, whip up some buttercream and, I'm just thinking about buttercream icing. Like, that's making me hungry for some reason. And she would just, like, spread them on graham crackers. And she would make, like, these little graham cracker sandwiches with, like, the buttercream on them. And they would just be perfect. Because you got that little bit of crunch. And then you also got just, like, this lovely, creamy buttercream frosting that just absolutely works. Yeah. Our family, we tend to make our buttercream very buttery and not, like, overly sugary, so it's more creamy than butter, I guess. however you like want to describe it. So it's not very sickly sweet like when we had it. And I love those. They were fun. I always liked them because like they're good. And that's just how you describe them. They are some good ass desserts, and they're fun. They're like the snack size desserts that you're just like, you have like one and you're just like, like that hit the spot. So that was pretty much my dessert tag. I hope you guys had fun with it, just having me like, lay back and be a fucking goofball for like half an hour talking about like all these desserts you've never heard of. Because apparently the only thing I do with my life is flex my college education and say like do shit like, oh what, you haven't had a Galatasaray? I guess you're just a plebeian. No, I'm not like that type of person. But like, yeah, I have like all this knowledge because I spent my entire life like, learning this shit. So like, I love talking about that type of thing. I love, all sorts of like different international cuisines, and so I do love to speak about it occasionally. If you guys are interested, let me know if you are like interested in any sort of like, stories about my college or just like food in general, because I would love to just have a conversation about like, desserts or like Viennese coffee culture or just like any other that other like nerdy bullshit, because like I love the idea of that. I actually kind of want to do like a couple cooking videos one of these days. Not like make that my channel thing, but I remember like watching this one video from Strange Eons where she was making like French onion soup, and I'm thinking, I know how to make French onion soup. Like, that would be a fun like video to make. But that's gonna be like, one of those days down the road. Anyway, guys, I kind of want to like, get off screen just because I have stuff to do today and you have stuff to do today. So let's wrap this up. As always, just remember you can like, comment, and subscribe. Those those are three great things you can do. Comment down below like your answers to these questions or any of that stuff. Remember, if you guys want to, you are tagged. This is a tag video. Just leave me a link in your description and have fun with it. Because also, like, let me do if you do this, like, this tag, because like I want to watch like your video and like subscribe or something, because that sounds like really cool. I am doing subscribe for subscribe. I'm just saying, like, like if you like your content, like, and you let me know, like, I'm gonna check it out. I want to like see who else is out there on the internet, and like, let's be this community with each other. And always, you can share this video with like all of your friends if you want to. You don't have to, but if you got a friend out there who wants to like, be entertained for like 40 minutes by some random fucker from like Medford, Oregon talking about why he loves tiramisu, well, I'm your bitch. Like, send him this way. Look at this dumb face. You got it. Anyway, guys, I'm going to shut the fuck up now just because I've been talking way too long. And remember, this is False Bulls 1, 2, 3, and I'm signing off.